Sauter, and I'm the director of the full-time MBA program here. And it's very much my pleasure to welcome you to our intersections in consumer behavior and to introduce you later on this evening to our two guest speakers tonight. So you've just been treated to a showing of our manifesto. It's about UST MBA and what we have to offer here in the academic community of the University of St. Thomas. And it's a fancy term for a commercial, one that our consultants conceived, if you will, after hours and hours of brainstorming and talking with one another, and that was finally the product that was brought forth. I've had the opportunity to work with our students, our faculty and staff here at the college for the last 3 years, and it really does convey our vision of where we are and who we are, which is to suggest that we have a strong desire to make it count. Each staff and faculty member here at the college values the work that we do because we know that we are making a difference in the school community. And we know our students, although some of them may not be able to touch on it or understand it when they first start, have that same desire. They know that this is a place that allows them to be able to accomplish their goals and to make a difference both in their lives, in their careers, and especially in the communities that they serve. The video and tonight's event is really part of our initiative to raise your collective awareness about our goals here at the University of St. Thomas and how our faculty and our staff and our alumni in the community really serve to impact businesses and industries around us. We have more than 2,800 graduate business alumni living and working and representing Fortune 500 companies here in the Twin Cities area. And another 10,000 are present in companies both big and small within this area, the region, and on the national level. You really can't do business in this community without running into a Tommy. It's our job to cultivate strong leaders, and with that education and that experience, they're present. And you're going to run into them, and we're proud of that, and we're confident in what they can do. The University of St. Thomas has a very long history educating, nurturing business leaders, and from its earliest days, both as a small campus in St. Paul, to now today in this facility, in the building that you're a part of here at the Opus College of Business, we seek to educate highly principled business leaders. That's our mission, and that's what we do, and we make good on it. I'm excited now tonight to shift to our presenters. And in the spirit of the Intersections event, they represent both the academic, research focus, and the practical application of leadership principles in their field. Dave Brennan, here. He's a professor of marketing at the college, and he has 12 years of business experience at Target Corporation, General Tire, and Travelers. He also has 33 years of teaching experience in service to this community and to others. He's co-director, along with Dr. Lorman Lundstrom, of the Institute of Retailing Excellence here at the University of St. Thomas. He's an active researcher, consultant, and media interviewee in the areas of marketing, business planning for retailers, suppliers, and cities. Dr. Brennan focuses on discounting for operations like Walmart, Target, shopping centers, especially the Mall of America, retail industry, structure, and consumer retail behavior. Annually, Dr. Brennan, alongside Dr. Lundstrom, conduct and publish the Holiday Spending Sentiment Survey, something I think we could all focus in on. Our other guest this evening is Roberta Bonoff. She's president and CEO of Creative Kidstuff and Sensational Beginnings. She develops here and she oversees long-term strategic planning, develops strategic business partnerships, and implements the marketing plan for a very big and growing operation. She also serves as vice president of Temple Israel in Minneapolis, and she's engaged as well in community organizations such as MNRA Board, the University of Minnesota Advisory Board, and the JFCS Entrepreneurial Advisory Board. Would you please welcome both of them? Thank you. We have a couple of housekeeping tasks. If I could please ask you to check your phones and your reminders and make sure that things are shut down and quiet for the night, we would be very grateful. And I want to make sure that you're aware that we do have microphones, and we invite you to intersect and intervene during the conversation and ask your questions as you have them. So please do not be shy. It's my pleasure to start the evening's discussion. And
can we run the slides first?
You want to run the slides first?
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
So. There we go. Thought what we'd do first of all would be to give you kind of a little bit of an overview. How bad was it? You know, it was so bad that I felt I had to do dress in blue today. And you'll notice the other deal is my tie. Does that look like snowflakes? And they were about that big too. But let's take a look at what it looked like. If you look real quickly here, and I'm not going to spend much time, but you see an awful lot of single digits. These are all-time records. In terms of the coldest winter on record, you'll also notice it's pretty much Midwest and upper Midwest in particular. You look at snowfall. Detroit with number 1 with 92 inches, but Philadelphia much more expansive than that. Take a look in terms of the Twin Cities. Our average was less than 10 degrees Fahrenheit. I think we all can appreciate that. Days below zero, 5th most at 53. If we'd have gone a couple more, we'd have been in 4th place. Snowfall, 70 inches. Janet Yellen today was being interrogated, I guess you'd call it, in terms of by the Joint Commission on Economics at Congress, and she said that the lack of growth during the first quarter of the year was largely because of the weather-related issues. We also, the numbers don't show it, but if you take a look at it, I'm just showing you the things that are recordable in terms of snow. I'm not talking about ice. So think about Arkansas, all the way that swath across the south in terms of ice, sleet, down power lines, and everything else that came with that. Just some real quick numbers. Employment impact, you can see that employment impact was a little subdued during the main part of the winter, and look at how it's bounced back. The same thing goes as far as retail employment. Has started to perk up again. You take a look in terms of retail sales, up a little bit in December, down both in terms of, well, down in February and then up slightly, but look at the rebound in March, and I look for April to be similar. Oops. And then in terms of, if you look at all the individual store categories, you can see the tremendous amount of difficulties, even including the automobiles up there. The only ones that did well, building materials. And we'll talk more about that later, but electronics did well, and food and beverage, in terms of grocery stores, did just generally pretty well. And then in terms of March sales, you can see how they've bounced up. So I'll turn this over to you.
Great.
Do you want to go ahead, or?
Yeah, so I have a doozy. You have option 1 or option 2.
Pardon?
I've got a doozy of a question, option 1 or option 2, you choose.
Option 1.
All right. I need you please to explain the vagaries of consumer behavior.
They are vague. I swear there is no consumer behavior, not really. That's a really, really interesting question. We're finding the consumer to be more and more difficult, only because they have so many options. So, you know, I look back, I've been doing this for quite a few years. First of all, if you would have ever told me I was going to run an online company, I would have said, what's an online company? Because it didn't exist, right? So I now run a tremendously successful online company with my bricks and mortar. So let's look at all the options that the consumer has to choose from to buy. They can buy from a kiosk. They can buy from a store, they can buy online, they can shop on their phone, they can shop on their tab, they can shop through Facebook, they can actually be on Snapchat. I cannot even tell you the vast amounts of way that the consumer can shop. So how do you corral that? And so what is consumer behavior? You know, we're working really hard to figure out how to corral that, how to focus it, and then how to get them to focus on us. You know, how do you get the consumer to choose us versus going to the mass market? How do you get them to choose specialty? And we have found that we have to work really hard to increase our identity, but to make the consumer realize that what we give is something that the mass market can't, which is we are the experts in our field. And so if you want to shop with us, you're going to shop with us because we're the experts. We're going to have a fabulous selection of goods. But actually harnessing consumer behavior and harnessing it in crazy weather is really, really a difficult challenge these days. And I think a lot of people, a lot of companies are really trying to examine more and more, how do you get that customer's attention? What are they paying attention to?
I think if you look at retail just generally, it's like a barometer. It tells you what the weather is like, and in terms of is it going to rain or is it going to be sunny. But and a lot of that is created by customer confidence. Are they feeling good about themselves, and are they doing well? Are they getting salary increases? Are they able to buy things, particularly at Creative Kidstuff? But beyond that, to the degree that you have increased uncertainty is really the key factor in terms of if there's a risk factor, whether or not it's in terms of from a savings standpoint, or if it's weather that keeps you in or makes you decide that you're going to spend your money on something else, like fuel to keep your house warm or to have your driveway plowed. That's going to take money out of that retail stream. And so there are lots and lots of vagaries that deal with retailing. In terms of consumer behavior is definitely not linear, and it tends to be multifaceted.
So I did put some slides together. I thought this was really appropriate. I think we all felt that this way. Now is the winter of our discontent, or was the weather of our discontent. But something that I really wanted to share with is when weather does come at you. So those sales are lost. You don't get them back again. And I'm also going to share that as a retailer, I was brought up, most people in my company, you don't blame the weather for anything. So there are no excuses in retail. You just got to figure out how to get that consumer in the door. But then there's the reality. The reality is sometimes you can't get them in the door. But I wanted to kind of share an example, particularly in the fourth quarter. So when we get hit, I have to be honest, November and December, from mid-November through the end of December, every year, I always would like to say I enjoy my holiday. I do, but I'm always glad when it's over. Because 20 to 25% of business is done in the fourth quarter. And in my industry, the statistic is 38%. So in a very short time period, I'm doing 38% of my business. If there is a snowstorm on a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday, I'm never going to make up that business. You can't. If I lose a weekend in December, I could be losing 6% of my entire sales in the month of December. So the numbers and the statistics and the pressure are really hard. You need to really count on that weather being on. We watch it like a hawk. Can you change it? No, obviously not. But we watch it. And again, once sales are lost, you can't get them back. Can they shop online? Absolutely. So you're stuck inside. You're now in front of your fireplace with your pajamas on, and you want to buy some toys. You can do that, but you're never going to make up the amount that you're going to make by somebody walking in that door. You know, we always say there's something in our stores called our human beings, our salespeople, who are absolutely fabulous. And they are going to do that add-on sale that the online component, yep, they can suggest. But there isn't somebody really telling you what you needed to buy on top of what you already bought and asking you what else. So, yep, the online has helped us, and I'm really grateful that we have both, but you really never make up those sales.
I'll probably take a little bit of issue with that.
Okay.
If you take a look at it, it kind of depends on the kind of store that you're running. We've already talked a little bit about grocery stores. In the long run, basically, people are going to eat the same amount. On the other hand, if you're a restaurant, those sales are very likely gone. And even deliveries are going to be down considerably. When you take a look at it in terms of if you're Home Depot or if you're Ace Hardware, guess what happens? Snow means what? Snow throwers and shovels. If you happen to be in some areas where the power lines are down, generators become a lot more important. So it's not necessarily some stores will fare better, some will fare less. Some over the long term will even out. Automobiles as an example, and automobiles, think about it in terms of car crashes, what happens, and the bump shops and all the other kinds of stuff that go along with that. But nonetheless, it's also, by the same token, taking the deductible out of people's spendable income too. So it's not an easy thing to say the weather is the blame for everything, and that as a result of it, that people will stop buying. Some cases they buy earlier, grocery stores, in anticipation. In others, they buy after the fact to try to ameliorate some of the issues that have come up.
So there's another thing that also happens that you'll find as a trend, which is as you get closer and closer to the holiday, where it can be affected, you're going to find some unusual markdowns happen. So in a particularly tough weather season, so what is the retailer going to do? I got to get that customer in there some way, right? I'm going to try to incentivize them to get them in. What am I going to do? I'm going to run a sale. And so you're going to find sales happening that you wouldn't normally see. I think what we call them the winter blowout sales or the winter blowaway sales, or any amount of what you could call that happens. But what does that do? I think it would be really interesting if you dig into the P&Ls of the companies that actually have to do that to get rid of the inventory, because at the same time that you're trying to get, and I'm concentrating on the fourth quarter because it's really, for most retailers, the most impactful. You're trying to bring in your January and February receipts, your winter and your goods that you stocked up because the holidays were going to be are sitting there. You're going to have to move them somehow. So, and that just at the end of the day affects your profitability. So it's there are some other impacts that when you dig down deep can actually happen when the weather gets tough.
A couple of thoughts on that. First of all, if you look at what's happened with the traditional holiday spending season, Black Friday is no longer the most important day. It is important, but what's diminishing is because you have Cyber Monday, you have a Green Tuesday, and you have Small Business Saturday. And you find that punctuated ever increasingly earlier on, so that's kind of flattening off. But by the same token, in terms of if we look at the toy market, we've got Toys R Us as a big box category killer type of a retailer that's out there. We also have Target and Walmart particularly that are out there, and what they do is they use the accordion effect. They expand their inventory very, very substantially to take advantage of all of this. But guess what happens when it gets in the waning hours of the Christmas selling season? They got to blow that merchandise out. They don't have the room, the demand isn't going to be there, so they cut prices savagely toward the end, which undercuts the specialty retailers like Creative Kidstuff. So, and that accordion effect goes across all different kinds of lines of merchandise. It's not just toys, but others, and are impacted very greatly by discounters.
The other thing that happens is in that whole scenario, Amazon gets on board too. So if you have online and Amazon starts to play and they start to price match across, you've really got a war starting to go on out there. So it's a fascinating thing to watch. You can be the #1 in the buy box on Amazon because we also sell on Amazon, and the next thing you know, you're not the #1 in the buy box anymore. You've been booted, and you really have to. You have to have the technology that supports that to track it to find out why you've been booted out of that buy box. So things are just, they move so fluidly and so quickly, and it's fascinating.
This might be a good time to talk a little bit about retail analytics, and the excellent example is Amazon. Amazon, if they're running your platform for you, what happens is they are collecting the data. They know exactly what's happening and when. And so they can do it a couple different ways. #1 would be as far as, is this a business we want to get into? And how we might want to manipulate it. Or is there something we can learn from this that we can apply to one of the other categories that we're in? So there's an incredible amount of learning in terms of this big data that is out there and that they can do it. Now, having said that, small businesses, I mentioned that Ace Hardware guy. Guess what he does? He is really good at logistics. You know, when the big box stores like the home improvement stores can't get the merchandise, he has suppliers that he can get the salt, he can get the roof rakes from. He goes directly to them. Whereas with the big box stores, they have to order through their distribution center. So there's some advantages there. Or if you're the McDonald's guy and you keep accurate records all the time in terms of what the weather is and what events are in your community, you know about what to anticipate for staffing levels, what the revenue is going to be. It's done on a paper and pencil basis, but that is one way small retailers can do it. Now, how long they can do that, who knows?
Right. So, you know, the next part is stores need to be staffed and open, even with no sales. So there's, you know, those are always the times when still my phone rings and they go, are we going to open today? Yep, we're going to open today. Now, nobody should take their life in their hands to get there, but if somebody can get there and open the doors, that would be really great. So when a really big blizzard happens, and seriously, if somebody can get there and they aren't going to hurt themselves, it's always the rule in our company, nobody's life is worth a toy. That would be a little ridiculous. We're going to open our doors. But sometimes you're opening your doors, one, because also the mall opened their doors that you're in, and they have rules and they fine you if you don't open your doors. And two, you never know. Consumers like to get out on snowy, crazy days. You know, they could be the only ones shopping. They get everything done. So no matter what happens, we have to be staffed and open, even with no sales. And Dave reminded me of a story that I shared with him when we first started in our online business, and actually it happened again this year to us. There's nothing worse when your staff can't get to your fulfillment center to fulfill the orders that are just piling up from online. So when we first started, there was a wicked snowstorm, and we literally, it was like that. You know, if anybody's seen that commercial where you watch the orders come in and you're going, stop, that's what it was like. And we were like, oh my gosh, we couldn't get our staff into our fulfillment center, they couldn't get into the parking lot. And so what do? You have to throw more staff at it, right? You have to get more people in there a day later, and then the consumer is a little nervous about getting their goods. This year was probably one of the craziest of them all. We moved our distribution center. We were acquired in November. And we moved our distribution center to our parent company's space in Allendale, Michigan. Did you see up there it was 91 inches of snow in Detroit? Allendale got even more than that. There were days, and I'm now part of a $40 million online company that was doing, you know, 10, 15, 20,000 orders. You start backing that up, pretty soon your customer service lines start ringing, but were you prepared for your customer service lines to start ringing? Did you have overflow planned? Could you even get overflow into the customer service? So it's really interesting how things start to like back up. My customer service people are going to tell you that they never want to go through last holiday again, because that snow not only stopped it from there, but it stopped FedEx and UPS from delivering the week before Christmas. It was crazy.
And I think by the same token, retailers, particularly the bigger retailers, Amazon in particular, really overpromised in terms of what they could deliver. And as a result, FedEx in particular, which is really light in terms of the ground delivery part, had all kinds of problems. And one of the things that they did do is they started using the postal service more as a result of that. They've also just announced that they're going to ramp up more vehicles, which obviously will increase their fixed cost, improve delivery. But I think one of the big things that's going on there is to watch the elephant in the room, and that is Amazon. What they are doing is increasingly building distribution centers in major cities with the idea of having either same day or next day delivery to ameliorate some of these problems. Now the question is long term, and this is more for FedEx and UPS, is are they going to get into the game of doing their own delivery? I mean, they can't do everything with drones even if they get approval. So I think it is an extremely fluid situation that's out there, particularly in the logistics area.
Yeah, and we found also with Amazon, or just actually the consumer. So let's go back to that first question, which is, consumer behavior. The consumer is holding onto their money longer. So not only did you have the impact of the weather this last holiday season, but you had a delayed purchase pattern. We found it's getting more and more delayed every year. When I first started in this business, people would start shopping in October for the holidays. We're now down to 6 weeks, and that's a lot of volume to do in 6 weeks. And then we're finding that people don't mind spending a lot of money for overnight, 2-day, or they have Amazon Prime. I mean, it just keeps building. And so you're right. I mean, you couldn't have even, I don't think you could have forecasted what was going to happen this holiday season because of that.
And I think there's a nuance this last year that we had the shortest holiday season between Thanksgiving and Christmas that you can have, in contrast to the largest last year. And so as a result, we've got some extra dynamics that you can plan for and anticipate, but until it comes, you can't really deal with it, and you don't know exactly when it's going to come.
No, you try really hard. You watch it like a hawk, but you do never know. We always feel like in our industry that snowy weather sets a holiday mood, but it really can dampen the ability to get around. We actually like in Minnesota when it snows because just that light snow though, not the lots of inches. We like it because you actually find the consumer going out and, it's the holidays and it's Christmas and, we're gonna buy. You can actually find the mood lift, not only with the consumer, but we actually find it with our staff too. The holiday spirit just tends to lift. And we have had years, I'm going to say on the reverse of that, I can remember years when it was still 60 degrees at Thanksgiving, and I think we were playing football in the backyard. And I was like, no, can we please stop that? Please, can we just please stop with the warm weather? Because we're not going to get them going unless we start getting some snow or some coolness happening. So weather to me is like this catch-22. As I said, as a retailer, we're never, ever allowed to say it's the reason. You have to have the right product at the right price, promoted in the right way is what we live and die by. But there are some nuances.
Well, I think if you look at some of those nuances, and it doesn't deal with winter directly, but growing up, I worked in an Osco drugstore. And when it would rain, we would want to be really well-staffed. And why? The farmers came in then. And if you take a look at it in terms of other kinds of businesses, you close the schools, what happens? The fast food places are open. The entertainment places, the movie houses do a much better business. So there's a lot of shifting that goes on depending on what the weather was and in terms of who's impacted.
And then there's another thing that absolutely to me is one of my bigger nightmares some days is the media. So the media can really do a number on you because all of a sudden on Monday they're telling you there's going to be this great big storm on Wednesday. Oh, nope, it shifted to Thursday, so you don't want to go out. But you do want to stock up, and you're going to want to go stock up in your essentials. And so you're going to go get your groceries and everything, and you're going to make sure that you've got everything you need. Oh, and then the storm isn't going to happen until Friday, but all week long, they've scared everybody, right? So they put a little fear in everybody about, well, you can't really get out, or if you're going to get out, you should go out now, but maybe you don't want to go out now. And you just find that builds and builds and builds. And so the media also can have an effect on what's happening around the weather.
And I think that's particularly true as you get closer to Christmas, as an example. Or alternatively, is going to occur on a weekend, and then it actually occurs early in the following week. So it plays certainly the weather people and the news people play a role in this, and part of it is the science isn't exact, and I think sometimes they tend to be more careful in expostulating in terms of this may happen on Thursday, like the big storm we're supposed to have tomorrow. we'll see. And I think that that's kind of what happens in terms of meteorology and its impact in terms of retailing.
And Dave hit on this already, but heating bills, home maintenance costs increase. For a store, we actually have that also. We have some pretty big stores, so the cost of heating those stores goes up. I cannot tell you how many front rugs we went through. I think everybody who had to exchange out the rugs because of the snow that was being tramped in and the salt. And then there's the effect of all that salt on your carpet and or tile, no matter what no matter what your architect has told you is the best thing that you can possibly do, I'm gonna guarantee you, by the time you get through a winter like this, you can throw out the rugs, you have to bring in services to clean the tile, clean the carpet, get things back to normal. So the wear and tear on your store, how it gets tramped through the store, no matter what you do. We think we have found the best walk-off rugs. Can you believe this is what I do for, I have to think about what's the best walk-off rugs. We think we've got the best, but when you hit a season like this, you don't have the best.
I think if you look outside, you've got an issue too. You go to a regional mall, and regional malls, by the way, are set up to handle about 95% of the cars that you'd normally get on the busiest day of the year. Well, that's based on car spaces. What happens if you have snowstorms? They've got to pile this up, and as a result, you're losing parking spaces. And also you have the additional cost of being able to get rid of the snow. And then you have the carryover later on in the season in terms of what it does to the pavement as far as salt and the other types of things. So it works they both work against the retailer, both inside and outside the store.
I also have to think about how it affects my employees. And I have actually had employees hurt, right? It wasn't the plan, but let's say the mall didn't put down enough salt. I've had broken wrists, I've had a broken hip, people who slip and fall on the ice. And to me, that's the most devastating at this time of year, because that's somebody whose being is being affected. And no matter what we did or what we tried to do or what the malls tried to do, you still can't do enough sometimes. So the employees actually, get affected also. They're worried about getting there. They're worried about walking. And it's really harsh to watch, one of your employees break a hip in the middle of the fourth quarter. So it's unbelievable, literally, what can happen in an amount of time. You don't know all the effects. And the other thing that we look at is, are there other news distractions? So weather can be happening, but we had a big news distraction this year with a lot of tumult going on with our new health care and the Affordable Care Act. And then, unfortunately, one of the major retailers in our town really got hit with an issue of credit card theft. That really spins not only that retailer, but it spins an industry, because fear factor comes in again. Fear factor came in, credit cards got changed, things didn't work. So it's fascinating how news, right, besides that just the weather is out there, news becomes a distraction to the consumer. Do they get back on track? Yep, they still have to have the gifts, but it can distract them. And we had some really heavy distractions this year.
And I think, continually in terms of credit cards, debit cards, I think that's going to be an issue until some things get resolved in terms of the embedded chips and the like. But you can't anticipate a lot of these things. You can do the best you can to make sure that they're not going to happen, but if it happens to somebody, Michael's, Target, whatever it happens to be, it will impact you because it's increasing the amount of uncertainty. And consumer behavior is driven by either certainty or uncertainty. And with uncertainty, it becomes a lot more difficult in terms of turning prospects into customers.
Right. When that all happened, I can remember, so I'm going to back up for a minute. Our company was acquired by a company called Charity USA in November of last year. So large online company. I can remember that day, my emails were full of, have you checked, did we do, right? because you don't know what's going to happen. And with some of these viruses that are out there, you think you've taken every precaution. And I have to tell you, in running a company, it's one of my worst nightmares. I've got some others. But it's the thing that you really, you think you've done everything you can to protect yourself, and you don't know. You don't know until somebody out there decides they're going to do something. And then we moved off of the fourth quarter, and I have another slide, which is, inventory deliveries. I forgot that one. Sorry. That does happen too. So inventory deliveries can be late. So there is nothing crazier than when you have a runaway item online, and all of a sudden the weather affects the delivery, and your shelves are empty. And you can't get that back. You can't get the reorder, the back order, and you've got customers waiting and waiting. And literally in our industry, in the fourth quarter, we've been known and told we have ruined people's holidays completely, and it was out of our control. We have had literally, truly, trains derail with large shipments of goods. There are things that can't get through port. And so it's just, it's the business. It's why we're in it. It's craziness, but it's also something that can happen.
It happened to Best Buy a little over a year ago in terms of they had ordered goods and they weren't delivered. And as a result, they had to go back. They were ordered before Thanksgiving, but they had to tell them the week of Christmas, sorry, but we can't deliver those for Christmas. So you got all these kind of issues that are out there. So you're constantly juggling things in terms of what is hot and what is not, and in terms of making sure that you can resupply, but that's not always an assurity, particularly during the winter.
What I love, though, is once we hit January is the tiniest portion of our business, right? We're just trying to clean up, clear out. So when bad weather hits in January, you're a little bit more relaxed. It's just percentage-wise, it's actually for us, makes the least important contribution to the entire year. And we had an unseasonably fabulous January, which we couldn't figure out, but we'll take it. I don't know if they just got a lot of gift cards because they couldn't get out shopping in December, but we had a fabulous January, and actually as a company, December was record-breaking. So but where it was record-breaking was online. So they did do that. They did shop online. They did sit in their pajamas in front of the fireplace and shop. So you could watch the trend happen.
On the other hand, we've had some very mild winters. And during those times, what do you think about snow throwers? Nobody buys a snow thrower unless they really absolutely have to. And what if there's no snow until February? Well, I can get by for another month. And so the consumer behavior, a lot of it has to do with the timing of it and the severity of it, whether or not it's cold, snow, ice, and sleet. That's why it becomes a lot less predictable in terms of what's going to happen.
The other, I'm going to share another perspective. I can wear two hats, which is really interesting. My parent company, because they are charity-based, actually does a fabulous business when there's a really bad storm somewhere. So because what my company does is it has charity-based sites and it has a foundation. And through the foundation, when you make a purchase, it feeds the foundation. And the foundation actually supports charities throughout the world. They've given $15 million to charities all over the world. So when a storm came through, and I'm going to give the most recent, the tornadoes that went through and really, really devastated part of our country, they will do something called a gift that gives more. And they'll send an email out to their email database and saying, would you like to make a difference? Would you like to give a gift? So not only are we able to feed the foundation, and they have, I'm going to give the example, they have the animal rescue site. They'll put something out, the money will get fed to the foundation goes out and actually rescues and helps shelters and actually rescues the animals. So some businesses, particularly if they're trying to help and trying to make a difference, can actually benefit when weather happens.
So, it's 90 degrees. My hair is super humid. It's, all over the place. What tools are being employed in the retail space to drive me to make a decision because of the weather? So it's controlling my behavior.
Do you want to take that one to start?
So the way I understand it is in terms of what is driving, in terms of how retailers can use it.
What systems are being
Well, I think,
used?
in terms of, we talked before in terms of retailer analytics that if they take a look at the humongous amount of information that they have, they can take a look at previous things that have occurred when certain weather events occur and anticipate, and if those are anticipated, then they can put out advertisements and other types of things and promotions to get people to come in earlier and to buy those kind of things. And we're still not far enough along in that process, but more and more companies are able to anticipate what's going to be happening. And it's almost like what Amazon does in terms of its consumer database and big data, is they take a look in terms of purchase behavior, and they will make suggestions. Well, the same kind of technology is useful in terms of prognosticating what weather is going to come and what items will be necessary and will be purchased. And those with big databases are best able to handle those kind of things.
Yeah, and we actually do that. So it's 90 degrees and your hair's sticking out and your kids want to go outside, and we're bound and determined. We're going to send you an email blast, and we're going to tell you all about the Wiggle and Water sprinkler and all the fun things that your kids can play with outside and stay cool. So we do mine. We mine our email database. We suggest on a consistent basis. Our online is set up to also suggest. So, you know, when we can get in front of the consumer and influence them, we'll absolutely do that. And when the weather starts to shift either way, we sold out of all of our sleds and shovels and mittens and hats, and all of that went. And in the summer, it gets really, really hot and sticky. We're going to sell out of just about anything that you're going to go to the beach with, because we're going to remind you that you need to go to the beach because you need to cool off. And families do that because they get tired of being stuck inside.
Good. I think it's time that we could open up the floor to questions from our audience. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask our speakers?
I have one question. Being in a toy business, looking at the type of customers that you probably have parents, you have grandparents, and probably people buying gifts. How do you figure out and attract the different groups of people to come to your store or to come online?
It's a really great question. So, you know, we really do focus. So a lot of toy retailers focus on the child. So you're going to see, you know, national advertisement that's really to feed that child, because they'll see the commercial on TV. That's not what we do. So our vehicles, we actually, you know, do catalogs and direct mail pieces, and they are specifically, we find everybody wants service. So one, we try to offer as many services to make it as easy to shop as you possibly can. But two, what we found is that we really like to help families play. So we actually did spreads in our holiday catalog that were about going to grandma's house, you know, packing up for the overnight, best gifts that, you know, that you want to do that way. And then we had another one for a spread where it was date night. You know, things that parents could go out, but these were fun toys that the babysitter could come and play. So we really recognize, and that has really shifted, actually how toys are used and how often that they're bought. That's really shifted. And so we specifically target it, and we also our email blasts, and we have a lot of people who shop with us online and on email, and we literally target it from time to time, very specifically driven to that customer. Our Sensational Beginnings brand has an older demographics, and so we've assorted that holiday catalog in a totally different way than our Creative Kidstuff holiday catalog. So it's very, very specific. It's all analyzed, and the most important thing for everybody right now is what service can you offer? How easy can you make it for them to shop? And we find that we can wrap it, get it ready, send it to our warehouse, and get it out the door is really, really, really important.
I think one aspect, an additional aspect of that is, and it's gaining some momentum, is creating an experience. And I think Creative Kidstuff does that, but all you have to do is go out to Build-A-Bear, American Girl, and now the most recent knockoff, the Barbie shop out there. But if you take a look at it, it's something more than just product. It's extending the product, extending the experience and the memory. And the other aspect, I think, is really the grandparents in terms of the toy area. That they've got the money, they've got the interest and the willingness to depart with that money. And so identifying there are multiple targets that you have in terms of the toy area.
And you know, talk about the new normal. I picked a couple, I had somebody pick a couple slides for me because if you've ever been to New York, this one absolutely, you know, the experience, what Dave said is really, really true. As much as you can drive it, as much as you can make it good. That's a picture of the Hollister store on Fifth Avenue in New York. And if you've ever been and you walked by it, the lines. I was just in New York 2 weeks ago, and still the lines outside that Hollister store, just because of the interactive video of the storefront, and then the experience once they go inside. And then the experiences are changing because the other picture is about how you can buy a pair of tennis shoes from a kiosk. And I would say, you know, that's driven all the way to some testing that's being done about, you know, buying your groceries standing at the subway station by just pressing buttons, and it's delivered to your home when you get home. So experience, whether it's a fast experience or whether it's an experience that makes you build a memory, which is really what we love to do during the holidays, experience is becoming more and more important because that is something that you can deliver in bricks that is tougher to deliver on your click side.
And then we could talk about adult toy stores. And those adult toy stores are called Apple. And again, when you start looking at that, Apple has created a situation where somebody walks you through every aspect of whatever you need, and that is a differentiating point compared to, say, Best Buy and some of the other corporations. So that experience, whether or not it's the fun part or whether or not it's the functional part, becomes exceedingly important. The answer is very few. Very few people answer those surveys. And they do have incentives, promotional incentives that you're in a drawing or that you'll get some kind of probability of getting $5 off, $10 off, something on that order. But the results on those are very, very poor. And I think it's very selective whether or not you've had an outstanding experience or whether or not you've had a lousy experience. Most of the people in between don't bother.
Yeah, we actually don't do surveys on our receipts, but we do surveys to our. We do multiple things. So we do surveys to our email database, and literally send out a survey. And we've found that our customer really cares and gives us fabulous feedback. I really feel privileged and honored that our consumer lets us know what's on their mind, and they do take the time if we ask them, because we don't ask them often. So I found if you're constantly asking for feedback, you're not going to get it. But when you have an intentional request and you need to learn something, they will take the time to fill out the survey. And we do focus groups. We do focus groups with kids. We do focus groups with adults. So we're constantly, we work with mommy bloggers. We're constantly trying to, we just did a focus group last fall because, again, as I said when I started, we're trying more and more and more to try to figure out where that consumers, where are they shopping, what are they looking at, and who else are they shopping with so we can understand their patterns. So customer data is really important to us, but I also have found that you need to make that transaction really fast. So the more you bog down the transaction, you ask too many questions at the end of the transaction, the less likelihood you're going to actually get the data you want, and the consumer standing behind them might walk out because you've slowed the process down. So we're actually spending a lot of time researching how we can get that faster. get the data that we need, because we do need to track purchase. We want to track inventory. We want to be able to look at what you're shopping for so that we can send you, additional emails or information about other things that you might want. But we're not going to slow down the process, because consumers are so time crunched that we have found anytime we slow down the process, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
We found from doing the holiday survey that response rates went down, and they went down by about half over a period of 6 or 7 years. And a lot of it is fatigue, in terms of people are asking all these questions all the time and the like. So we have ultimately gone to what we call a research panel, where people are paid to answer the questions. However, we add quotas in terms of within each area to make sure that we're getting it. But I think that's a real problem. How many of you are willing to answer a phone survey at 6 o'clock at night? That's the only time they call.
Yep.
And I think people have just do not call, or just say, forget it, or just click. And I think that's an increasing thing that's happened in our society. Think about how your behavior when you're online, in terms of all the email blasts that you receive. What's your response? Unless there's something that hits your deal, you're probably clicking it off. Delete.
For being here tonight. I have a couple of questions. Number one, with the brick and mortar stores that are selling kids things, do you have any idea if it's adults coming in solo or if it's adults with children? And then secondly, when children are coming in, do you have any idea on who's really pushing for the purchase, the kid or the adult?
Right. So we have both happening. So we have children who will walk past our stores, or know our stores, or see our wrap or our food, that funny stuff, if you're familiar with our brand that's on top of the package, identify our brand and want to come in our stores because it's fun. Parents like to come in our stores without their children because of the influence, literally, that the children will have on the purchasing. So it's kind of sometimes hard to shop in our store when you have your children with you, because you're trying to keep your eyes, because they're darting all over the place. So we literally have tried to set up play areas within our store so we could try to get the kids a little stationary so mom and dad can walk around and feel comfortable to shop. And literally at some times of the years, our staff will just try to mind that so that the parents can shop. And when a child is in the store, it absolutely influences the purchase behavior. There's sometimes when parents just bring their kids in and maybe go to like our pickup area and buy them something little, but really the reason they brought them in the store was to see what the child wanted so that they could come back without the child to get it.
One of your competitors, online competitors, is called Fat Brain, which is, I think, a pretty decent outfit. And one of the advantages they have is you're sitting at home in front of the computer is you can say, is it a male or a female, the age group, and then it'll come up, are you looking for the best sellers? And then it gives a description and all of the other types of things, and then it gives reviews. So there's a lot of different kinds of competition out there. It's not just Toys R Us, but there are lots of other ones, and they come to it from a different angle than the store-based retailers.
Yep. We know them well. We watch them all the time.
When you're communicating with your customers through email, how many emails is too much? Where they just, as you said, click, click, delete, delete, delete.
So first of all, you have to opt in to get our emails. So you really have to want to hear from us. I mean, that's any retailer. But we have found, the rate, it's really interesting. We don't have that many people, once they choose to be part of our emails, that actually opt out. Our opt-out rate is pretty minimal. We try to be really respectful. So we only email daily, and during the holidays, we'll step it up. But we don't really believe our consumer, we talk to them in other ways. We talk to them on Facebook, we talk to them on Snapchat, we talk to them on Twitter. So we talk to them on Pinterest. So we're talking to our consumer in so many ways, but But we've really found that respectfully, if we just kind of inform them, and it's got to be relevant. If you're not telling them something relevant, you're going to get clicked off so fast. And the everyday being something on sale is just such a turnoff for a parent. It's nice to have a sale. I'm not saying that they don't buy, but we want to give them a reason. Why would you buy this toy? What's it going to do for your child? And so we try to make sure that our emails are relevant to what the consumer is doing.
I think some of the ones that we get right now, it's planting season. Well, it's almost planting season. So we do a lot of gardening. So guess what we're getting? We have 10 or 15 different companies every single day that we're getting things for bulbs and various other types of things. But it varies seasonally. So, you know, it almost shuts off at the end of the fall, except for planting bulbs again. But different patterns for different kinds of companies. Some tend to be very promotional. So Land's End, as an example, always has a promotion. Different kind of promotion. They run 30% off every once in a while, but usually it's selective. But they always have something going on.
I have like a 9-part question.
Go.
And I think it's about chasing. Oh, thank you. It's about chasing, beating, and surprising. So as the consumer is making decisions faster and they're having different places to go, different options, how does your company's ego respond to wins and losses when you chase a customer because you want them, so you give them a sale, and then whether that works. You beat them, so you see a trend and try to get ahead of it. But then you also try to drive your own business and surprise them. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. So in those 3 categories, chase, beat, surprise, how is your ego doing?
Wow, we have a motto in our store, literally leave your ego at the door. So that's an interesting question for me to even talk about. Our brand ego, interesting. We do all 3 of them, but it's never a conversation if we're winning or losing. It's going to sound really trite. It's how you play the game. So we're always, when we lose, it's a conversation of, okay, what could we have done differently? But we don't ever have that conversation in our company, actually. We don't look at ourselves as losers. We look at that maybe that wasn't what the consumer was looking for. So we don't, it's just not it's not a brand conversation. What we're really focused on day in and day out is delivering excellence in the customer experience. So if we're going to be a loser somewhere, that's what's going to kill me, right? That's when the company's ego gets bruised, is when we have not delivered to a customer what their expectations were, which is really hard to do. But when those emails come, when a customer gets to me and they're disappointed, they've had to jump through about 3 layers, that's when we're going to be upset. It's not going to be about the sale. Some sales win, some sales, we just ran a sale, it was average. You know what? Wrong time of the year. We knew what we did when we were doing it. We were on trend. Let's talk about the hottest trend that there was in our industry, the rubber band bracelets. You know, Michael's beat us to it. They run in containers. We got as many as we can from as many different vendors. But you know what? That's okay, because we're going to find the next one. So when we can't tie up the inventory on the hottest trend, then we're going to go march forward and try to figure out what the next hottest trend is. And we've actually got that flying right now in our stores. So we just are constantly, we don't look at it that way unless the consumer is upset with us. That's a problem. That hurts the Creative Kidstuff ego.
If you're a buyer and you never have trouble with, you're always buying spot on merchandise, what you're doing is playing the game very conservatively. You're not taking chances. You're not looking in terms of pushing the envelope out to where the customer is really looking. You're going to make some mistakes. Everybody does. But if you're playing the game conservatively, you're going to have difficulties in terms of you're going to lose more business than you're going to gain.
And believe it or not, this is the time of year where we're going crazy playing that game.
We have time for one more question.
I'm curious, you were just touching on this, but I know when I think of Creative Kidstuff, I know that I'm going to walk in and see innovative products. And so I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how do you find those products before other people? And could you also share an experience of maybe a time when you got an innovative product and it didn't work out? How long did you hold on to it, and how did you get out of that?
So we get through holiday in January. We're on a plane and we're in Hong Kong. Then from Hong Kong, we go to, this year was Hong Kong, then strategic planning in Seattle, then it was Paris, where I did 2 shows, then it was Nuremberg, then it was New York, and sometimes we throw Birmingham in there. So we are hitting every show, and not just toy shows, because we're looking for a trend. So what's really interesting, if you went into our stores right now, you'd find that the theme is all about having a groovy summer. That's because groovy in 70s was everywhere. I didn't care if I was in Paris or if I was in London or if I was in Nuremberg. Groovy and those colors was coming everywhere. So you're going to see that hot van and the hippie and the whole thing coming out again. So we chase trend like there's no tomorrow because that is our innovative way to stay ahead, and thank you for recognizing that. When we miss, when we think it's going to be the hottest thing and it's not, we slash that thing so fast. I think the worst thing that a buyer can do is ever be married to their product. And so we review product sales all the time. And my husband actually was a retailer, and he taught me this. He'd say, product is not fine wine. It does not get better with age. And it is absolutely the truth. The older that inventory is, the more it's tying up dollars, and it's just no good. So we are quick to recognize, whoops, done, get rid of it.
If you look at retailing generally, if let's say that you're in apparel, the buyers have to go out to the clubs in various places, not just in one area. They have to go to a wide variety to see what people are wearing and how they wear it. That's one. If you're on the leasing end in terms of a mall, you have to do the same thing in terms of looking for the next big thing. So as an example, I was down in Chicago in January, and I visited a new place down there. It's called the Italy. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. Wonderful place. Do you think the Mall of America is interested in getting something like that? Yeah, I've talked with the leasing agent. They would very much like to have that part of their new deal. That's what you have to do. You have to be out there. You may have people coming to you with ideas, but usually the ones coming to you are sellers more than anything else. You need to create what's for your particular target market and your particular kind of store.
Yeah, I would say on average, we walk. So, for instance, when we hit Paris, we get up we're out the door 8:30, 9 a.m., and we don't stop till 8:30, 9 a.m., and we're doing nothing but walking the streets, trying to get into every retail store, whether it's toys or not. We'll first try to see the toy ones, but most of that stuff we know. One of my favorites in Paris is called Merci. It is a cutting-edge retailer, and every time I go there, I want to see why. And I can tell you why, and we actually then experienced it, and we brought it here and tried some of it here. So constantly, I was just in New York. I spent 6 hours on Saturday doing nothing but walking. Wasn't Fifth Avenue. I was trying to hit Fifth Avenue. I was trying to hit the Village. I was trying to hit as much as I could, as fast as I could. And I actually came back, and I'm never disappointed. I was so disappointed this trip. I was like, okay, come on guys, come on retail. We gotta snap it up because nobody's doing it felt like nobody. Uniqlo's really amazing out there. They're taking that really sharp price point, just barrel the inventory in. But other than that, I was like, really? And even on my count on people, I always go to ABC Carpet at Home. I can count on them for being innovative. I was like, what? So it's really interesting, and part of that, I'm going to go back right to is the weather, right? How do you turn yourself around after you've experienced a tough season? How do you get re-engaged? How do you re-engage that customer? How do you get fresh inventory in? So it's a full circle, and it was fascinating.
Well, I know we're not disappointed with the conversation tonight. Can we offer them a round of applause? Thank you so much.